think it might go down badly, Theo, with 17.4 million voters.
It may well do, and many of your callers.
You know, the idea that we're now, if this happens on Wednesday, that it's going to be in the interests of Barnier and Juncker and Verhofstadt to make sure we don't get a good deal, and then come next February or whatever it is, Parliament could veto the whole thing. Big day on Wednesday. Theo, thank you for joining me. What you're seeing here, folks, is a willful, deliberate attempt to subvert the referendum result, the biggest democratic exercise in the history of this country. This is deliberate. They are framing this in such a way so that Barnier does not have to be even reasonable with the Prime Minister, so that in the end they can effectively stop Brexit happening on March the 29th next year. I hope and pray that the House of Commons holds firm on Wednesday. Wow, big stuff. So, the big announcement yesterday morning, we all woke up and suddenly the Brexit dividend was going to be used to increase spending on the National Health Service. Now, in political terms, that looked to be quite a clever game. But do people actually buy it? Do they actually believe it? Is it an honest thing to say? Well, look, I've always believed in the Brexit dividend. I've always believed that we leave, we stop paying the money, we open ourselves up to the rest of the world. I've always believed we'd be better off. But there is not going to be a Brexit dividend by 2023 if we're still stuck in transition and still paying the membership fee. So perhaps not surprising that a Sky data poll out today says 26% of people think Mrs May's promise is very dishonest, 28% think it's fairly dishonest, and only 7% think it's very honest. So Mrs May facing problems here. Let's listen to her today at the Royal Free Hospital setting out her plans.
Some of the extra funding I'm promising today will come from using the money we will no longer spend on our annual membership subscription to the European Union. But the commitment I'm making goes beyond that Brexit dividend. So across the nation, taxpayers will have to contribute a bit more.
A bit more? I wonder, how much more? Well, there was a press conference afterwards and Mrs May was pressed further. Where is this 20 billion coming from, Prime Minister?
Part of this money will be coming from that Brexit dividend. But as I said in the speech, and I've said, as a country, we will need to contribute a bit more. Taxpayers will need to contribute a bit more, but we will do that in a fair and balanced way. And we want to listen to people about how we do that. And the Chancellor will bring forward the full set of proposals before the spending review. On the Brexit dividend, look, it's very simple. We're not going to be sending the vast amount of money every year to the EU that we spend at the moment on the EU as a member of the European Union. That money will be coming back, and we will be spending it on our priorities, and the NHS is our number one priority.
Well, if we weren't entering a transition phase, and if we weren't going on paying a net 9-10 million a year, Prime Minister, I might believe you. But, this is the messaging I want to hear. I want to hear that we're going to use that money we're not giving to Brussels, and I'd like the foreign aid budget cut too, to help the health service, provided, of course, we know we've dealt with waste and excessive middle management. But at the moment, it doesn't work for me, and yet, in that same Sky data poll, 54% of people do say they are prepared to support tax increases if it helps the health service. So, once again, the Prime Minister is onto something, and yet, in her delivery, it just doesn't seem to be cutting through. So let me ask you, are you prepared to pay more money for the health service? And if you think, well, do you know what? I think we're taxed to blazes already. Not just direct taxation, but what we pay on alcohol, tobacco, petrol. We're paying enough. It's time for efficiencies. Call me on 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you're one of that 54% who thinks, no, we've simply got to pay for more money. The population is rising by 500,000 a year. We've got no option. Then text to 84850. Or maybe you do think, and the Daily Mail went very strongly on this today, and bear in mind they are Theresa May's biggest supporter, and they're saying, before we put money in, let's sort out the waste. And if that's how you feel, please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and watch us on Facebook and comment there too. Let's get a view from Barry in Lichfield, a new caller to the show. Welcome, Barry.
Hi, great to talk to you, Nigel. I'm a great fan of yours, to be honest.
Well, great to have you on, Barry. So, do you believe the Brexit dividend is going to be there by 2023?
I don't think there'll be Brexit. I think I've been listening to LBC all day, and I actually don't think there'll be a Brexit, the way they're trying to fudge it. And I don't think people mind supporting the NHS, and I don't think people mind paying towards it. But I think the total waste, anyone can come to this country and use the health service for nothing. I think that's the problem. I don't think it's the fact that people mind paying for the NHS. I don't. I think doctors and nurses do a wonderful job. I have a niece who's a doctor, and she's worked ragged. But I think taxing people all the time to solve the problem, look at the problem. The problem with the NHS, it has health tourism, it has waste, it has unhappy staff, it's just over-abused. I mean, I live in America...
And Barry, the point I keep trying to make, and no one wants to listen to me, a population that is rising by 500,000 a year because of immigration.
Yeah, but then you said, I know a few people listen to this, they'll call me racist, they'll call us racist. It's not about we're not racist.
Just a fact.
Yeah. And it's like, I lived in America and I lived in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
You have to pay, in Hong Kong, you paid in after 7 years, you got health treatment. I understand if there's an accident. I was once ill in America. I had to give my credit card to get seen.
So, Barry, really, you are in the majority. You would be happy to pay a bit more tax to the NHS, but you want it sorted out first, yeah?
Yeah, and also I'm self-employed and I employ a lot of people. And I was talking to my accountant today. We're just being taxed to death.
I know. Well, that's tax. That's how I feel. Direct taxation, indirect taxation.
Theresa May is the worst Prime Minister we've ever had. And I was a Conservative, and I'll be honest, I think Blair and Brown were better than Theresa May.
Barry, she's not great. Thank you for the call. And goal flash. Harry Kane, England hero, has scored. We're 1-0 up against Tunisia. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusive in LBC, live from New York, and it's now 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
Quite a lot of consternation caused over the weekend by the Conservative MP, Christopher Chope, who blocked a law to ban upskirting. But I have to reflect the interests of my listeners. They will be puzzled that you're in a position of such influence that you can block something you don't understand.
But if a detailed bill is put before the House and it hasn't had any debate, as a matter of principle, I block it.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With The Times. Be not just informed, but well informed. Your data matters to the NHS. Information about your health and care helps us improve your individual care, plan your local services, and research new treatments. The strict rules about how this data can and cannot be used have been strengthened. We're committed to keeping your information safe and being clear about how it is used. You can choose whether your confidential patient information is used for research and planning. To find out more, search Your NHS Data Matters. This has been brought to you in association with the Information Commissioner's Office.
When you need more space.
Think creatively. What could you use a log cabin for? A studio? A home office? A den for the kids? Creative Living will design and build a log cabin to suit your needs, even taking care of electricity and climate control. See for yourself at our 3 large cabin display villages in Surrey. Find out where at creativelivingcabins.co.uk.
Your own log cabin, handcrafted, the creative living way.
At Boots Opticians, we're here to help you discover a stylish new look for less. We've got thousands of frames to choose from, so speak to us and together we'll find the perfect pair for you. In fact, with 2 pairs from £75, why stop at just 1? Book in store or at boots.com. Boots, let's feel good. 2 for £75 on Boots £50 glasses as part of our half-price additional pairs offer. Both pairs must be bought for the same customer in the same transaction, subject to availability. See in store.
Experience the thrill and excitement of a cup final at the home of cricket.
And there it is. It's been a tight, tense all day here at Lord's.
The Royal London One-Day Cup Final takes place at Lord's on Saturday the 30th of June.
It's away, leg side, gone! Amazing scenes.
Tickets are available from just £30.
He can't get there! What a game of cricket we've seen.
History is made at Lord's.
Exciting line-up here from the little team. Budweiser, 4 cans, $3.99. Snacktastic tortilla chips, 69p. And Gallero Premium Lager, 4 cans, $2.79. The first half looks like a mouth-watering prospect. Little, big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability. Selected stores. Prices in Scotland and NI may vary.
Dearest Aunt Sarah, I hope this letter finds you in the rudest of health. My passage to America was, I can say without exaggeration, the most singular experience of my life. Travelling in a class to which I've not been accustomed was simply wondrous, and my meagre vocabulary struggles to find the words to truly do it justice. But what I can say without hesitation is that it was savage, boom, ting, and proper lit. Peace out, Susie.
Spend on our new Virgin Atlantic Reward credit card and upgrade your flight. Upgrade and feel proper posh. Representative 22.9% APR variable. Virgin Atlantic is an appointed representative of Virgin Money plc. Spend £20,000 on a Virgin Atlantic Reward credit card within a 12-month period to receive an upgrade from Economy Classic to Premium when you book a reward flight. Visit virginatlantic.com/proper posh to find out more.
Blimey.
This is LBC, The Nigel Farage Show, live from New York. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Well, Mrs May's been out there today giving it the hard sell. Another 20 billion is coming for the NHS by 2023 because we need to spend that money, and most of us are happy to put more money into the NHS, but many of us are very sceptical about the way that it's run, and a lot of us are feeling, do you know what, we're paying enough tax already. That's certainly how Jan and Paul from Norwich feel. They say we're paying enough tax. Mrs May should clamp down on the useless management and keep a strict account of what the NHS spends our money on. Yeah, Jan and Paul, like, paying massively overinflated prices for drugs, for example. On Twitter I get no to extra tax. I'm a nurse and support the NHS, but it's a bottomless pit and needs huge cuts in order for us as a nation to focus on what we really need from it. That's interesting coming from a nurse. And Edward on Facebook says, pay more to the NHS because monopolies are well known for controlling costs and providing quality service. A very sceptical Edward there on Facebook. What does Tim think? A new caller from Oxford. Tim, do you want to pay more tax?
Well, I think like everybody else, I would be prepared to, but there's a lot of reorganisation and savings to be made first. And
yes.
I actually used to be in the business of providing medical equipment to the NHS. And we were very good at procuring it, and they were awful at procuring it.
So were you Tim, were you a manufacturer, or were you basically a merchant for this stuff? How did that work?
We were merchants, and we would sign up big contracts with hospitals to provide all of their medical equipment for, let's say, the next 15 or 20 or even 30 years.
Yeah.
And we were able to procure from the main four providers, GE, Siemens, and Philips and the like, and we just did a far better job of it than they did, and obviously we were aware of the sort of prices they were paying for scanners before we took over, and there was a system of bulk buying for the NHS as well, which was also completely useless. They're just not commercial.
Tim, is there a lack within the NHS of people with business acumen knowing what value for money is?
Oh, definitely, absolutely. I mean, one of the papers, it was probably the Daily Mail, about 6 months ago, they had a big article about the huge range of prices that various trusts across the country were paying for
yes.
the same item. You may remember it, that's a pair of rubber gloves, 50p or £5, that sort of thing.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, that's one area that I know about that the NHS is very bad at.
And when she tells you, Tim, that this extra 20 billion that we've got to find, that most of it's going to come from the Brexit dividend, do you believe her?
Well, I wanted to make another point, actually, Nigel, about the Brexit dividend, which is that I listened to a very good talk by John Redwood back in February, and it's available on his website, and I think it was at the Mansion House, and he made the point that when you are inside the EU, all of the import tariffs that you do collect, obviously on stuff coming from outside the EU, goes to the EU. But when we are outside, if we ever get outside the EU, all of the tariffs we do collect, we will keep.
Yes.
I don't know if you can confirm that's correct, but I mean, that's probably...
Well, and also, Tim, there's an argument that if we have a tariff regime with the EU, our stuff that goes to the EU will incur 7 or 8 billion sterling of tariffs, and their stuff that comes to us, we'd collect about 12 billion in tariffs. So you can argue this all round the houses. But I think, Tim, her problem with this is to say there's going to be a Brexit dividend when she signed us up, to continued membership effectively during the transition zone, just makes people not quite believe her somehow.
Yeah, I think that's right. We can clearly see what would have been the Brexit dividends currently doesn't start for several years.
Exactly.
But again, I do want to make the point that whenever tariffs are discussed, this big point that there's another 5 or 10 or 15
Yeah. No. Tim, it's a very fair point. Great call. Thank you. Tina on Facebook says, I pay quite enough tax, thank you, and it gets wasted. Karen says, we should be able to opt out and pay privately if we chose to. Well, Karen, I have always thought that we should encourage people to use private healthcare to take some of the burden off. I've always strongly believed that. Mark in Mill Hill is my next caller, another new caller to the show. Mark, good evening to you.
Good evening, Nigel. I've been listening to the previous callers, and I agree. I think we are very much taxed enough already. I also believe as well that there will be no Brexit dividend. I mean, to paraphrase Churchill in the recent film that came out, you don't negotiate with a tiger when your head is in its mouth.
Well, very good. Very good.
It's a very apt quote, and it applies absolutely to Theresa May, who, frankly, is bargaining away every possible advantage we could possibly get from the EU to safeguard our country and our economy and our wealth for reasons that I can't see to have anything more to do with, frankly, ineptitude. I don't believe at all that we should actually be raising taxes to fund the NHS. And let me say from the outset, I'm a major fan of the NHS. I've personally benefited from it. I think the people who are working there at the front lines are wonderful. Yes, it does get quite a few things wrong, and yes, let's be clear, there are huge amounts of problems with waste and mismanagement at the top, and I think that is where we should be addressing the problem, at the top. You know, when you consider the people who are running the NHS are earning huge amounts of money and huge salaries, frankly, whenever we see cuts to the NHS, they always take place at the bottom where they can be least afforded. We need to reverse that round. We need to start cutting at the top. And when people are not performing and are not making the savings and are not delivering the care, those heads have to roll first and foremost.
But you can see, Mark, what she's doing here, can't you? You can see that when this vote comes back to the House of Commons on Wednesday, she will say to the rebels in her party, you know, unless you support the government position on this, you'll be voting against money for the NHS. That's what she's going to...
I have a very simple solution to that problem straight away. The first one of which would be, let's make it a voluntary tax. Those who want to pay extra money to the NHS, even though, you know, the evidence is overwhelming that it's badly managed, fine. Let's put up an additional code for the tax code, and those who want to pay...
And how many would, Mark? How many would?
That's the question, isn't it? Let's see how long their resolve actually lasts.
Yeah, I don't think very many. But Mark, your general points about where Mrs May's got to in these negotiations, I agree with completely. She has played the bureaucrats' game from the start, and they're rather better at this than we are. Mark, I thank you very much indeed. Good evening, Nigel. I would like Mrs May to sort out the economy and get Brexit underway before she puts our taxes up. And on Twitter I get, take it from the foreign aid budget. No, I'm not happy to put more money into this bottomless pit. The NHS needs to get its act together. No health tourism, says Nigella. Now, so far tonight, all of our callers have been new callers, but Herbie in Harrow is a regular to all LBC programmes. Good evening, Herbie.
Good evening, Nigel. Well, we've got a bottomless bucket that's going in a great big black hole. And I don't mind paying more tax, Nigel, on one condition, that the government gets its own house in order first. You've got to bear in mind that the Labour Party introduced PFI, which has put the NHS Trust in great debt even now, where hospitals are closed and they're still paying the PFI, you know, sums of money, you know, for maintenance and all sorts of things. And I think the mismanagement of past governments and this government is all to do why the NHS is in so much trouble.
But Herbie, maybe you cheer the fact that the increases won't be paid for so much by us. There'll be modest increases, the Prime Minister says, but the Brexit dividend by 2023 will reap lots of money. Isn't that great news, Herbie?
Oh, of course it is. Hold on a minute. I think there's some pigs flying overhead. You know, I'll be very careful.
Herbie, as sceptical as ever, thank you. I'm going to go to Philip in Bridgewater. Good evening, Philip.
Hello, Nigel.
Hi there. So, would you like to put more money, be taxed more, for it to go into the NHS as it currently is?
No, I would not. I honestly believe this is another put-up job by Theresa May. I believe she's one of the best actresses out there, because I don't believe her at all, because there's no way we're not going to be paying money into the EU for a long, long, long time. And to predict that, how she can make a prediction like this right now, I just don't believe it.
But, Philip, we do have a rapidly rising population, and we can have a separate debate about why that is, but we have a rapidly rising population. We have many parts of the country in which waiting times, even for basic screening in many cases are going up. I mean, aren't you being a bit mean-spirited, Philip, in Bridgewater?
No, I don't think I am. What annoys me is when there's a lady down in Barnstable there. She couldn't get the drugs, and they've had to keep her alive. And this sort of thing really angers me, to think that, the more money you put in, the less we seem to get out of the NHS. It just needs reforming big time, just like what UKIP was going to do back in 2015 in our manifesto. And this is what I'm saying, that it's reform first, then add the money later. I mean,
well, that seems, Philip, to be a very, very popular view, and she's got a couple of problems here, the Prime Minister. Number one, people don't believe the Brexit dividend can be delivered quickly because of a transition period. And number two, whilst in our hearts a majority of us want to help the NHS, the feeling it needs fixing is very strong, and you articulate that view too. Philip, I thank you very much indeed. The NHS needs reform so we can pay less tax, I get on Facebook. Well, not many of you right behind the Prime Minister's big initiative, and she's going to be using that for the vote on Wednesday. She could even be using it for a general election in October. If that's the case, she's not off to a very good start, that's all I can say. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, live from New York City. It's now 7:30 and time for the news with Tim Humphrey.
The government has lost another vote on Brexit in the House of Lords. Peers have backed a plan that allows Parliament to shape the government's next steps if MPs reject the withdrawal deal Theresa May gets, or if she fails to negotiate one. The issue will return to the Commons on Wednesday. The Prime Minister's admitted extra funding for the NHS in England will have to partly come from higher taxes, but she stood by her claim that some of the money will still come from a Brexit dividend. A panel of clinicians will be set up to advise ministers on applications to prescribe cannabis-based medications. Home Office Minister Nick Hurd thinks the government needs to explore the issue further. LBC weather: central and eastern England will be warm and muggy tonight. Rain will continue in Wales, the southwest and northern Scotland, with lows between 8 and 17 degrees.
LBC travel, the A21 Molesworth Street in Lewisham is closed in both directions just off the High Street because of an investigation. It's causing queues along the A20 from New Cross. In Bow, the A12 looking heavy northbound at the Bow interchange where a van has broken down, and the A13 slow heading out of town between the Canning Town flyover and Movers Lane in Barking. It's approaching the roadworks. The North Circular also slow southbound at the Beckton roundabout. The M25 heavy clockwise approaching junction 25 at Enfield. LBC travel, I'm Charlotte Downs.
This is LBC.
Experience the thrill and excitement of a cup final at the home of cricket.
And there it is. It's been a tight, tense-all day here at Lord's.
The Royal London One-Day Cup Final takes place at Lord's on Saturday the 30th of June.
It's away, leg side, gone! Amazing scenes.
Tickets are available from just £30.
What a game of cricket we've seen.
History is made at Lord's.
Vision Consulting Chartered Accountants have seen astonishing growth over the years. So now, their ever-expanding client base means they're looking for remarkable people to join the Vision Consulting team in all areas of the business. In particular, they have immediate start vacancies for senior tax directors and payroll clerks. But they'd love to hear from anyone with a proven track record in accountancy. For a bright new future, visit visionconsulting.co.uk and apply today.
Connor, that was quite a shift.
Yeah, credit to the team.
Any assists?
Yeah, like with the LG 4K Super UHD TV. It delivers rich, accurate colour from any seat in the room. Just $679 for the 55-inch. In fact, buy any 55-inch plus TV this summer, there's a 1 in 20 chance to get your money back. At Curry's PC World, we help you get it right.
16 plus, excludes Northern Ireland, ends 26th of 6th. Register 32 to 42 days after purchase. Full terms at currys.co.uk/free TV.
We all like choice, the freedom to choose, to be given options. Which is why at Change Exchange we developed a recruitment platform that can post your vacancy to over 200 specialist agencies. One platform that gives you a wider choice of agencies to work with, featuring pre-vetted candidates. There's no subscription fee. You simply choose in advance the fixed fee you want to pay for each filled vacancy. Change the way you recruit with Change Exchange. Search online for Change Exchange Recruitment Marketplace.
We've got it at Selco. Selco, it's where the trade go.
At Selco Builders Warehouse, we've got real deals on a wide range of trade-quality building products. In June, we've got a 6x3 foot sheet of 12.5mm standard plasterboard for only £3.49 ex-VAT. Now that's a real deal. We've got even more real deals at Selco Builders Warehouse. For more information, see selcobw.com.
We've got it at Selco. Selco, it's where the trade go.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show, live from New York. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Whilst Mrs May tries hard to sell us her plan for the extra $20 billion going to the health service by 2023 and telling us it's not just all about tax increases, it'll be about the Brexit dividend, and she's struggling to find much support in many ways for this. Meanwhile, another issue that is absolutely dominating politics on both sides of the Atlantic is immigration. Here in America, Donald Trump's zero-tolerance approach towards illegal immigration across America's borders has come in for some criticism, and here today was the president hitting back.
The United States will not be a migrant camp, and it will not be a refugee holding facility. Won't be. You look at what's happening in Europe, you look at what's happening in other places, we can't allow that to happen to the United States, not on my watch.
So the big row is that, you know, people coming in across the border, children being separated from parents, a zero-tolerance policy, and some criticism of this even from people like Laura Bush, the wife of the former president, and yet people like Steve Bannon, who was Donald Trump's campaign manager, saying, look, we promised to reduce the numbers coming into America, both legally and illegally. Trump has to do this or he will lose all support in the run-up to the midterm elections which take place here in the States in November. And meanwhile, Trump has also been commenting on what is going on in Europe. And he says on Twitter today, well, where else? The people of Germany are turning against their leadership as migration is rocking the already tenuous Berlin coalition. Crime in Germany is way up. Big mistake made all over Europe in allowing millions of people in who have so strongly and violently changed their culture. We don't want what is happening with immigration in Europe to happen with us. Now, what he's talking about here is the fact that 1,000 people have been killed or wounded by people seeking refugee status in Europe since 2014. The argument is this will not happen in America. Meanwhile, in Germany, Merkel's still struggling terribly. The leader of the Bavarian Conservatives, Mr. Seehofer, putting huge pressure on her. He wants a German policy to deal with asylum and immigration, and she wants an EU policy, and she'll be going, and this is funny really, she'll be going to the European Council Summit on the 28th of June, seeking concessions from the rest of Europe. What a big change from the woman who ran the whole of the European thing for the last 13 years, now to be seeking concessions. So immigration, a major issue now in Italy, in Hungary, in Austria, in Sweden, right across Europe. It is the issue that is redefining the centre of gravity of politics, and it could still bring down the German Chancellor within the next few weeks. So big issue in most of Europe, big issue here in America, and not even being discussed in the United Kingdom at all as we continue to operate an open door with the rest of Europe. But no doubt, once she's dealt with the health service, she'll tell us how she's going to sort that out. Back to Mrs May. Do we believe her? May is calling from North Ayrshire, a new caller to the show. Good evening, May.
Hello, Mr Farage. I'm sick of listening to all these stupid men saying that Theresa May this, Theresa May that. What is it they expect the woman to do? She is raising the taxes for the National Health Service. People want to keep the National Health Service, and people have been agreeing for the last few months on your show, phoning different people saying, yes, I would pay extra. And then you got all these idiots phoning saying, no, I don't want to pay extra, oh, this, that and the next thing, and it's not fair. And Donald Trump, he's a dirty rat putting those little children in cages. What kind of human being does that? Someone
May,
related to Hitler does that.
May, what he's doing is sending a message, don't try to come to America illegally. And it does look extremely tough, I agree with you. But May...
They're dudes, but don't do that to little children. God forgive him. That is a terrible, terrible thing he's doing, ripping children from their mothers and putting them in cages. What kind of people do that?
Well, the alternative, May... The alternative, May, is to do what... May, the alternative is to do what Mrs. May, to do what Mrs. Merkel has done, and to say anyone can come that wants to come. I mean, do you see this is the great issue, May, that is dividing politics right across the West? It's how we deal with our borders, it's how we deal with refugee seekers, it's how we deal with illegal immigration. And his message...
Nigel, you don't treat people like that. For God's sake, you don't treat people like that. Why?
What about the child refugees? I mean, mate, we let child refugees in. We let child refugees in from Calais.
Yeah, I know, and I was very annoyed at that because half of them weren't children.
Exactly. And one of them tried to blow up the London Underground. So we have got to be careful about this.
Yes, I know, and there's been a lot of crime because these men...
But, May, let's get back to the health service. Let's get back to the health service. I think the general feeling, May, and we've had callers tonight saying it, people don't mind paying more money for the health service, but they are very sceptical, May, about the money that gets wasted on health tourism, on the private finance initiative that Mr. Blair brought in, on the huge growth of middle management. The message, May, I'm getting from callers and texters and tweeters to this show is we're happy to pay more money, but you've got to put your house in order first. And that, I think, May, is reasonable, isn't it?
Well, from what I understand, a lot of people, illegal people are not being allowed to access the National Health Service. I don't understand that, but I have heard it. But you're right enough, we should get the house in order.
Yes.
But what the point was, I'm listening to these people saying, no, I don't want to pay extra. They just don't want to pay an extra whatever. That's all. They just don't want to pay it.
Well, a lot of people...
And we need it.
People do feel heavily taxed, mate. You know, through direct taxation and indirect taxation, people do feel heavily taxed, and certainly the tax burden is higher than it was 7 or 8 years ago. Mate, I get the point. I thank you. On Twitter, I'd rather pay less tax and go private and not continually bail the government out, says Vince. Absolutely. If you want to use the NHS, then contribute to it. Those with private medical insurance should be exempt, says Dean. Well, whether they're exempt, Dean, I doubt we'll get to that. But I do think maybe what we should do is offer some tax breaks to people who want to take out private insurance, and that might lift the burden off some of the waiting lists. I'm happy to help the NHS as long as they don't spend £3,000 on something you can get in Boots for £3, says Chris. And we had a caller earlier who was involved in health procurement. Clearly, there are a lot of problems in the health service. Kevin in Huddersfield is ringing me with all the answers, Kevin, I'm sure.
I wish. Evening, Nigel.
Good evening.
Thanks for. It's great to talk to you again. Very, very, very quickly, when you and I were talking about Donald Trump sorting out Brexit.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
And I said, oh, yeah, he could do it in 23 minutes. Did you have a word with Boris to mention it at his dinner?
Well, I tell you what, maybe it's a case, Kevin, of great minds think alike, because very shortly after you said that, as you say, Boris said exactly the same thing.
Exactly.
The one thing I'm certain of is that Donald Trump would not allow unelected officials in Brussels to treat him, you know, as the British Prime Minister in this condescending and frankly insulting manner, and I wish you'd stand up to them. Anyway, separate point. Kevin, there's going to be a Brexit dividend, Mrs May tells us. Do you believe her in the short term?
I want to. I mean, she sits there on the Andrew Marr show and she says, I'm going to deliver this for the people because it's what they wanted. This money will go in, it's a Brexit and blah, blah, blah. But if it's just a big ploy and she's going to renege on it, by you, and twice now she has said, look, we can't get everything we wish for.
Yeah.
If she uses that line, and all of a sudden it all goes, it's all just mucked up, she can stand there and say, look, I did my best. Okay? Now, my brother, I won't say where, and I won't say his name, but he's high up in the NHS, hands-on.
Yep.
Okay? And he is having to do a hell of a lot more with a hell of a lot less. And it doesn't half stress him out. And he talks to me about it, he talks to our mum about it, and he has to treat foreigners for free, right, who come in, get their treatment, and then they go home again. You know, this...
I know, the health tourism, I think people object to that very strongly, very, very strongly.
To treat them. And the other thing he complains about is the fact that he is seeing privatisation very slowly creeping in through the back door. And he is told to shut up and get on with his job. Every time he goes for help...
One thing for certain, Kevin, you know, I'm here in America for the week, and I tell you what, if you turn up as a foreigner at an American hospital expecting treatment for free, you've got another think coming, as you would have in Australia and in many other civilised parts of the world. Kevin, I thank you very much indeed for your call. How sad to hear that so many say they wouldn't pay a penny more tax. Our tax is not high in comparison with Scandinavian countries. Well, OK, Jim, I get the point. But I do think, generally, people are prepared to pay a little bit more tax if they thought we'd get a better health service. But the feeling is the health service itself, frankly, isn't working very well. And that view seems to be pretty universal. Please come on and tell me we've got this wrong. Please, somebody come on, anonymously, an NHS manager, ring me up and tell me that actually every penny we pump into the NHS is being spent wisely. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. Call me and tell me that. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusive on LBC, and it's now 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
Cash is no longer king as the number of card payments overtakes coins and notes for the first time ever in the UK. Is this something you welcome?
Clive Bull on LBC.
Connor, that was quite a shift.
Yeah, you know, credit to the team.
Any assists?
Yeah, like with the new Sony XF87 TV, with an exceptionally realistic picture. Just 1199 for the 55-inch. In fact, buy any 55-inch plus TV this summer, there's a 1 in 20 chance to get your money back. At Curry's PC World, we help you get it right.
16 plus, excludes Northern Ireland, ends 26th of 6th. Register 32 to 42 days after purchase. Full terms at currys.co.uk/free TV.
Ocean Credit Card.
If you're looking for a credit card with a credit limit of up to £1,500, go to checkocean.co.uk and see in seconds if you'll be accepted for an Ocean credit card before you apply. Checking won't affect your credit rating, so it's a no-brainer. Find out if it's a yes. Go now to checkocean.co.uk. 39.9% APR representative variable. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One is the exclusive lender.
Checkocean.co.uk.
Experience the thrill and excitement of a cup final at the home of cricket.
And there it is. It's been a tight, tense-old day here at Lord's.
The Royal London One-Day Cup Final takes place at Lord's on Saturday the 30th of June.
It's away, leg side, gone! Amazing scenes.
Tickets are available from just £30.
He can't get there! What a game of cricket we've seen.
History is made at Lord's.
OK, I've got sweet fresh lettuce. Beautiful.
Sweet romaine lettuce, 89p per 2-pack. Mangoes, 89p each. And flat peaches, 79p a punnet. Our latest fresh 3 summer deals at 3 great prices at your local Co-op.
Get it while you can, all perfect for summer.
Subject to availability. See Co-op stores for details.
Life is about sharing those magical moments, and food shouldn't be any different. For over 35 years, Marouche has been perfecting this experience with their delicious food, warm hospitality and live entertainment. Authentic Lebanese cuisine made the traditional way. Marouche, your family restaurant. Book now at marouche.com.
You know your business, what it needs, what keeps you up at night, and what gets you fired up every morning. You know where you want to be in 5 years' time, and that you really want to be there in 2. We know we can help you get there. Barclays now offers unsecured loans of up to £100,000 that can be with you in days or even hours to help move your business forward. To apply for a loan that's just right for your business, search Barclays Business Loans. Let's go forward. Subject to status, terms and conditions apply, guarantee may be needed.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show, live from New York. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
As we approach half-time in the football, Tunisia have equalised. It's England 1, Tunisia 1. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Right, fingers crossed. Back to Mrs May and her battles, and also Donald Trump and his battles. And we had a very impassioned caller, May from North Ayrshire, criticising Trump for what's happening to people illegally trying to cross the border from Mexico, children and parents being separated. And Tim says the reason they separate kids from the adults at the border is for the safety of the children. And that's certainly the argument, Tim, that you'll get from Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General. Either way, there's a big message coming out from the States. Don't try and come into this country illegally. You will not get in. And it may look tough, but it is the agenda on which Trump was elected. Mind you, Mrs May was elected telling us she'd reduce migration to tens of thousands a year, and there's no sign of that. But maybe on the NHS we believe her when she says there'll be a Brexit dividend, which means our tax increases won't be too big. Not sure I quite buy that in the short term. What does Claire in Edgware think? Good evening, Claire.
Yes, good evening, Mr Farage. And I absolutely concur with May. The way Trump is behaving is barbaric. Firstly, can we just clarify one thing? It was John Major who introduced PFI to the health service, and Brown and Bear massively expanded it, but it was Major who introduced it.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But Claire, the expansion of PFI and middle management under Blair and Brown was enormous, wasn't it?
Well, I'd like to see it because we have very, very few managers in the health service now. They've reduced them to virtually nothing, and you've got the managers run ragged. Many of them are responsible for geriatrics, paediatrics, surgery, you name it. They've got to cover so many departments, and you can't have doctors overseeing overtime, running the clinics, providing capital expenditure, managing the beds. Bed managers have a terrible time. They work almost 12-hour shifts trying to find beds. So to talk about we're overrun with middle managers is just a misnomer. It's not true. And doctors will say to you every day when you're working with them, I didn't go to medical school to spend my time studying a spreadsheet. That is for managers. That's what they're for. And with regard to tax, we have to be realistic. There is no such thing as a Brexit dividend, a Brexit bonus. It won't happen because it isn't there to be provided. If we've got to give the EC £39 billion, there is going to be, and there never will be, a bonus.
Well, there may well be, Claire. Claire, there may well be a. I mean, Theresa May herself used the word vast amounts of money going to Brussels, which made me chuckle a bit. But there may well be a saving of £10 billion plus a year, but it's not going to come in the short term because she signed us up for a transition and agreed to pay nearly £40 billion. So she's struggling with the credibility of this argument, isn't she?
Well, I don't believe it's going to come now, and I don't believe it's going to come in 5 years' time because I don't believe it exists. But if I'm proved by my work in the health service, I'd like to see it happen. But
we do put £10 billion a year net into it, don't we?
Well, you say to us that we've got to be more careful about how we procure our things. We can't pop down to B&Q and buy plastic bulbs for 50p. We have to ensure, first and foremost, their provenance, that they've been made to our strict sterilisation standards, that the surgeons can use them in theatre, that they're pliable, that they're the sort of thing we need for microscopic surgery. We can't just buy gloves off the shelf. They have to be manufactured in their provenance, and this is really important, Nigel. Their provenance is of supreme importance. If they've not been manufactured to our strict sterilisation and hygiene standards, we simply can't use them. So therefore, people have to understand that. And I personally would fully support a hypothecated tax. We have to accept, because nobody's ever going to convince me there's going to be any Brexit bonus. I don't believe it exists. So therefore, we've got to be realistic. We've got to pay a hypothecated tax.
But Claire, income tax. We cannot do that. We cannot do that. Yes, we cannot say an extra penny on tax for health, an extra halfpenny for education,
No,
an extra
I'm not talking about education. I'm talking specifically, I think the education budget is vast enough, and if you stop wasting it on more grammar schools and stupid free schools and just put it into our excellent comprehensive system, which many of us got our A-levels from, and many of us got to university from.
But Claire,
we didn't all go to Chiswick Public School, Nigel.
We have all, Claire, been conned, haven't we? I mean, I get a tweet here that really brings in your point beautifully. He says, whoever it is says, I pay national insurance, which supposedly covers NHS costs. Is the government spending it entirely on the NHS? So, in a sense, Claire, when the National Insurance Fund was set up, everybody paying it got the impression it was going to be used for the health service, but in fact it all goes into a central pot. And if you start to hypothecate, if you start to take individual pieces of people's tax for different sectors, I honestly think the whole thing would fall to pieces.
No, you're being over-dramatic. The national insurance pays for our pensions, it pays for the old people, it pays for far too many things. It needs to be left alone.
No, Claire,
but
it just goes... No, it doesn't, Claire.
No,
it doesn't, Claire.
Nigel,
it just goes into a central pot. It's a con.
Nigel, I believe there should be an NHS hypothecated tax. I've always believed that. It should be closeted, it should be shrined, it should be protected, and it only goes to the NHS. I would say we need about 4, maybe 5p on the pound on income tax, not on value-added tax, because that hits the poor, not on anything else, on income tax. We all benefit from every one of us uses the NHS. And remember, you keep talking about expanding private care. Where do you think these doctors come from? They come from the NHS and they go into the private sector. If you expand the private sector, you denude the NHS. So the more you expand the private sector, the more you deprive the NHS.
Claire, let me ask you. Let me ask you. Do you think at the moment we are getting value for money for what we put into the NHS?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
You go and work in somewhere like Great Ormond Street and see what the miracles they do with these children that are on the verge of dying. Look at little Billy Caldwell in Chelsea and Westminster, who they managed to stabilise him without the cannabis that he needed.
We're arguing, Claire. We're not arguing about medical care, particularly for emergencies. We're arguing about whether money's being spent well in the system. Claire there works in the NHS, feels passionately about it, and she wants a specific tax. What we pay our money in to go to the health service. I tell you what, if it ever does come to that, we'll scrutinise where the money gets spent even more carefully. Simon is calling from Glossop in Derbyshire. Simon, good evening.
Hi, Nigel. I hope you're well.
I'm very well. I'm very well, getting some real passion on this subject. And I do understand the NHS is an emotive subject. But I have to say, I just feel that the Prime Minister is being less than straight with us about the Brexit dividend in the short term. And secondly, the idea that you just chuck money into the NHS, frankly, we need better than that, Simon, in my view.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the sort of terminology, chucking money into the NHS, I've worked in IT, in computers for 20 years.
Oh, now how much money did they lose on the IT system?
Well, that's a big discussion point. I'm not going to mention the company that they lost it to because I'll probably get told off.
Right.
I've worked in the NHS for about 2 years in IT, and we're talking about projects of around £700 to £800 million worth of value that were very justified and needed. But the frustration, and this is very common across the public sector, the frustration is that things don't happen because some of the senior management in particular have political ideals and arguments and things get blocked. And it's sad because public money is getting wasted and people as the consequence are suffering, and it's awful.
Do you know, Simon, they even spent in the NHS a lot of money 20 years ago preparing for the introduction of the euro. Shame that Mr. Cameron didn't spend some money preparing for Brexit, isn't it? Simon, I don't think we'll ever find a perfect answer to this, but
I think my main point is it's okay to have a business, whether it's public or private sector, but you need to be accountable. You should be audited. And be held accountable for what you do and how do it.
And I think, Simon, that question of accountability is the one where people are not prepared to just chuck more tax in. Ricky says, for a Brit living in the USA, my health insurance is $900 a month. I'll pay whatever tax you want. Don't take the NHS for granted. Once it's gone, you'll wish you said yes. And we do not want to take it for granted, but we do want to get better value for money. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back tomorrow night at 7. At 10 tonight, it's Ian Collins. But up next, it's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you. Coming up later at 9, it's the Consumer Hour, a chance for you to ask about your rights.